Hello! Today we're going to be talking about the 1980s, specifically starting with its fads. So the first fad we're going to talk about would be the Walkman. It was invented in 1979 by Sony co-founder Masaru Ibuka and was popularized in the 80s by people growing up listening to music in an easily transportable way. The next fad we're going to talk about is American hair metal. Oops, too far. American hair metal is a genre of music, a term coined in the 1990s that simply means a genre of music where pop meets heavy metal. The next fad we're going to talk about would be the mullet. The mullet was just a hairstyle that was popular in the 1980s. The next fad would be MTV. MTV was a television showing of collections of popular music videos. It basically was the gateway for showing things like Netflix and Amazon Prime and everything that would be a popular streaming service today. This opened the door for what would be popular for that. The next fad that we're going to talk about would be the yo-yo. It was a children's toy that had actually been around since 1866, which is a lot longer than the 80s. But it was popularized by Pedro Flores, a man in the 80s who would go around doing cool tricks and stuff as he walked along places and just kind of got people interested in the toy itself. A list of songs would be Olivia Newton-John's Physical, or The Promise. It was a song written in 1981. The next one we have would be Bette Davis Eyes, or Miss You Tonight, by Kim Carnes in 1981. Another one would be Endless Love by Diana Ross and Lionel Richie. The next one would be Every Breath You Take by The Police. Finally, we have I Love Rock and Roll by Joan Jett and the Blackhearts in 1982. The top artists we have of the time starts with Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson had 9 number 1 singles on the Billboard Hot 100 and spent the longest amount of time with songs on the Billboard Hot 100, which would be 27 weeks. The next one we're going to talk about would be Madonna. Madonna had 7 singles on the Billboard Hot 100, 15 cumulative weeks spent on the Billboard Hot 100. Next we have Prince. Prince had 4 singles on the Billboard Hot 100, one of the greatest cultural impacts of any American singer. Going in from the singers, we have books of the 1980s, starting with What We Talk About When We Talk About Love by Raymond Carver. This book centers on a cardiologist and his wife who have very different views on love. The next book we have would be The Color Purple by Alice Walker. This book discusses the trauma and triumph of an African-American teenager raised in rural isolation in Georgia. The next book would be Neuromancer, which is a book by William Gibson written in 1984, and it follows an out-of-work hacker contacted by a mysterious new employer. The next book would be The House on Mango Street. This book follows the story of a 12-year-old Chicana girl growing up in the Hispanic quarter of Chicago. And finally, for our books, we have a book called White Noise, a novel by Don DeLillo. Written in 1985, the story of a man's normal life turned upside down by a chemical mishap. Next, we have movies. You've probably seen most of these. The first one we have is E.T. The second one would be Star Wars: Return of the Jedi. The next one would be Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. And then we have the 1989 Batman movie as well. Following up with, last but not least, Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1981. Following that, we have TV shows, starting with 21 Jump Street, Booker, MacGyver, Street Hawk, Airwolf, leading straight into our inventions. So the first one we have would be the PC. This was the first ever PC ever made, and this made it cheaper and easier to manufacture computers than ever before. This was the cause of people starting to have computers in their own home as opposed to just having one computer for an entire town. The next invention we have would be the NES. This, apart from just being the first console that was capable of being 8-bit, the controller also shaped the way modern controllers look today because of how effective its shape was. The next one we have would be a VHS player. The VHS was the first widely used piece of technology that made watching films at home easier. Alright, and then finally we have disposable cameras. Excuse me, there's two more. Disposable cameras. By 2005, disposable cameras were a staple of the consumer film camera market, and flash-equipped disposables were the norms. And finally, we have CD players. CD players gave consumers access to more music of a higher quality, and it helped artists build their fan bases and become a successful part of the music industry. Popular entertainers, we have two. The top popular actress of the time was Meryl Streep, starring in many films and receiving many awards for her debut throughout the 80s. And then our second one, the top male actor of the time, was Robert De Niro. Following actors and entertainers straight into athletes, the first athlete we have is Joe Montana for football. He was active 1979 to 1994, and he is often regarded as the best quarterback of all time in the 1980s. He appeared in the Super Bowl 4 times, winning each time he appeared. Our next one would be Chris Evert. She played tennis. She was active 1972 to 1989. Her winning statistic, 94.55%, remains a world record to this day. She is recognized as the greatest woman athlete of the last 25 years in 1985. Next, we have Roger Clemens for baseball. He was active 1984 to 2007, one of the greatest MLB pitchers of all time, won record numbers of awards, and was the first pitcher to strike out 20 batters in a 9-inning game. failed to achieve Hall of Fame status after a series of doping, adultery, and injury scandals came out regarding the former pitcher.
It's rewind time. If I control rewind, I would want Fortnite and Marquez Brownlee.
Howdy, my fellow Americans, and welcome back to the Daily Mail's Decade Rewind.
In this video, we'll be covering the greatest events of the 1980s, from President Reagan's inauguration to Michael Jackson's groundbreaking album sales.
That being said, let's get started. Good evening, ladies and gents. My name's Garrett, and I'm your host tonight on the Daily Mail's Evening News. Joining me tonight is my co-anchor, Peyton.
Jump in now. Now, cue now.
Thanks so much, Sam. Tonight, the U.S. men's hockey team beat the Soviet-favored men's team 4-3 at the Winter Olympics in Lake Placid. This indicates that they will go to the gold medal game against Finland.
The victory places the United States in prime position for the gold medal. They will be going up against Finland, another favored team. However, America has no doubt in its mind that its team will win gold in this Winter Olympics. Good morning, America. I'm your host, Ethel. Today, we are unfortunately deviating from our regularly scheduled programming to bring you some breaking news. To you, Miguel.
Thank you. Thanks, Richard. Anyways, our reliable sources are reporting that Mount St. Helens in southern Washington state has erupted. We have a field reporter who is reporting to us now. What's the situation like there?
As of this moment, the volcano has been spewing great amounts of ash into the atmosphere for hours. One of the sides of the volcano has completely collapsed. According to our sources, earthquakes have been occurring in this area for quite some time. It appears that this event might have been portal.
Thank you, reporter. As for casualties, nothing official has been reported. However, we expect there to be at least some loss of life. We will keep you updated.
Hello, America, and welcome to the Daily Mail's ongoing coverage of the 1980 presidential election.
Breaking news, as the Associated Press has projected that Governor Ronald Reagan of California will unseat Democratic incumbent Jimmy Carter. Now to President-elect Reagan's victory speech at Los Angeles.
The mood in this room is ecstatic. Very rarely is an incumbent president beaten in an election, yet Reagan hasn't accomplished this in a victory landslide.
It appears that Reagan has taken the stage now to claim victory. Let's go to our live feed.
Let me just say first of all, this has been, well, there's never been a more humbling moment in my life. I would have been not only humbled by the extent of what has happened tonight, even if it had been the cliffhanger that all of us, I think, were expecting, it would have been the same way, but just to have had the support of the people of this country. I consider the trust that you have placed in me sacred, and I give you my sacred oath that I will do my utmost to justify your faith.
We will continue to update you on the election as developments become available. Good morning, America. We come to you with breaking news regarding the Iran hostage crisis, deviating from our coverage on President-elect Reagan's inauguration. To you, Gregory.
Thanks, Horatio. The Iranian government has announced that it will be sending all 52 Americans held hostage at the American embassy in the Iranian capital home. This marks a major turning point in the crisis, which began in 1979.
Also, it's hard not to acknowledge the timing. Agreeing to release the hostages right as the new administration is being sworn in can hardly be a coincidence.
Astute observation, Wendy. I would say that this could signify the Iranian government's willingness to pursue a diplomatic relationship with the new administration. Regardless, we now switch back to President-elect Reagan's inauguration. Good evening, American, and welcome back to the Daily Mail's Evening News. Today, Apple Incorporated founder Steve Jobs announced the Macintosh personal computer and that it will be released next year.
I'd like to let Macintosh speak for itself.
Hello, I am Macintosh. It sure is great to get out of that bag. And accustomed as I am to public speaking, I'd like to share with you a maxim I thought of the first time I met an IBM mainframe. Never trust a computer you can't live. Obviously I can talk, but right now I'd like to sit back and listen. So it is with considerable pride that I introduce a man who's been like a father to me, Steve Jobs.
This invention signifies a major breakthrough in home technology and will almost certainly catapult Apple into worldwide recognition. Welcome back to the Daily Mail's coverage of the 1984 election. As per predictions, President Ronald Reagan will hold onto his position, fending off Democratic challenger Walter Mondale.
This is not a shocking revelation, as President Reagan remains very popular amongst the American public. Many Americans are hoping that these next 4 years are as eventful and beneficial as the last.
Good morning, bros and not bros, and welcome to the Daily Mail's morning news. Joining me is my co-anchor, Judith.
I appreciate it, Suzanne. Today we'll be shortly going to our live feed at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where the Challenger's 10th mission is underway. This mission includes New Hampshire teacher Krista McAuliffe, who won a competition to be included as the first civilian to go to space. Let's go to our local station at the Space Center now.
SRB hydraulic power units have started. T-minus 21 seconds, and the solid rocket booster engine gimbal now underway. T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. We have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
Roger, roll, Challenger. Good roll program confirmed. Challenger now heading down range. Engines beginning throttling down now at 94%. Normal throttles for most of the flight, 104%. We'll throttle down to 65% shortly. Engines at 65%, 3 engines running normally, 3 good fuel cells, 3 good APUs. Velocity 2,257 feet per second. Altitude 4.3 nautical miles, downrange distance 3 nautical miles.
So the 25th Space Shuttle mission is now on the way after more delays than NASA cares to count. This morning it looked as though they were not going to be able to get off.
1 minute 15 seconds. Velocity 2,900 feet per second. Altitude 9 nautical miles. Downrange distance 7 nautical miles.
Looks like a couple of the solid rocket boosters blew away from the side of the shuttle in an explosion.
Flight controllers here looking very carefully at the situation. Obviously a major malfunction.
Greetings, y'all, and welcome back to the Daily Mail. Business as usual today as President Reagan prepares to deliver his speech at the Berlin Wall in West Berlin. Tell me, what do you make of the situation?
I think the speech will decide how President Reagan handles relations with the Soviet Union in his last few years as president. Depending on the tone, the Soviets will either be more or less ready to pursue talks.
Sorry to interrupt you, Bartholomew, but it appears Reagan is taking the stage now. Let's go to a reporter in West Berlin. That's a fireplace.
There is one sign the Soviets can make that would be unmistakable, that would advance dramatically the cause of freedom and peace. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
What a great speech. Wow.
Hey, bro, you got a phone call.
Good day, evening, morning, afternoon, morning, evening, Daily Mail viewers. Some big news has aroused tonight. George H.W. Bush has been elected our next president. My co-anchor will cover more on that now. To you, Bruce.
This is some baloney. We all know who should have won. The oh so great George H.W. Bush has won the 1988 election. He has won over 40 states and taken the lead against challenger Mike Dukakis.
The next 4 years look bussin', folks.
朋友是一个坚韧不拔的纪录片。
Welcome back to the Daily Mail viewers today. Today reports are coming in U.S. troops have invaded the Central American country of Panama, reporting on the situation of our field report.
Manuel Noriega is the current dictator here in Panama, and the president has sent the military to take him down and bring him back to the States so we can try to convict him of his crimes. The States has reason to believe that he has been a major factor in the drug smuggling rings down south. Back to the studio with more information.
If everything goes right in Panama, Noriega will be brought to justice and tried soon.
I agree.